Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Are you guys off to a good start?
All right. And hello to everybody watching live across the world. We love you. Thank you for staying up in England, especially 2 o'clock in the morning.
2 in the morning, that's right. You know, we wouldn't be able to do this tonight without our wonderful sponsors, Intune Productions, Rock Canyon Studio, and of course the VFW, I'm sorry. Let's give a round of applause for our sponsors, huh? Absolutely. That's great. You know, guys, we are so excited to be able to share some stories, some personal stories, some untold stories, some experiences that have changed our lives. We're excited to share some family secrets. We're excited to share some inspiring messages and some lessons and even some mistakes that we've made over the years of 60 years of being in the entertainment business and myself traveling all over the world. We're just so excited to be able to share some sound advice with you guys here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
You know, talk about traveling. I just got to tell you really quick. Some of the people in England will know what I'm talking about. But I just got back from England, and it was an interesting experience. I was getting off the plane when someone tapped me on the shoulder, and I looked around, and it was a little gal wanting my autograph. And bless her heart, I obviously gave her the autograph. Well, I kept going down the tarmac, and another person tapped me on the shoulder. And just as they were tapping on the shoulder, a policeman grabbed me by the arm and physically took me right off the plane. Took me past passport control, through immigration, through baggage claim, right out to the lobby. And I looked at him and I said, well, thank you. And you know what he said? Anything for Kenny Rogers. Do I look like Kenny Rogers?
Thank you very much, Kenny Rogers. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Donny Osmond. Look at this man.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Thank you. You know, as we share some of these lessons that we've learned in our lifetime, it's not to say that we have all the answers. No. We're still learning every single day, like we all are, aren't we? And but to get started, we thought we would share one of the untold stories of our family. A lot of people don't know how the Osmond family really got started. Would you like to hear how the Osmond family really got started? Yeah? Awesome. Well, it started when my dad was 4 years old. At that time, he had brown hair. And at that time, they lived up in Ogden, Utah. They lived on a small little dairy farm. And at an early age, they found that they had a gift, that they could sing. And they could do barbershop music. Well, one day they had an opportunity to be able to audition for the Lawrence Welk Show. How many of you ever heard of the Lawrence Welk Show?
Yeah.
It was back in the day. It was one of the biggest shows back in that time. And to have this opportunity to audition for Lawrence Welk himself, they thought this would be their big break. They were so excited. And they were like, oh, this is going to be able to open up so many more opportunities for us. So they got in their old little family station wagon and they took that long ride all the way down to California from Ogden, Utah. They get in that lobby area and they're waiting to get up there and do that audition. You can just imagine the excitement and the nervousness. I'm sure they were scared to death. Well, so it happened, Lawrence Welk said that there was no more room on the show and they were never able to audition for the Lawrence Welk Show. And you can just imagine their hopes and dreams were shattered. Their hearts were broken. I can't even imagine what it was like. They drove all that way, and they didn't have a lot of money at that time. You can just imagine how depressed you must have been. I mean, I can't even imagine.
Very depressed.
Yeah.
Very depressed.
Yeah?
But you know what? We had 2 great parents. They were amazing. We had a dad who was very, very gentle and yet strong. He was a military sergeant. Then our mother was as sweet as they could possibly be. They're both were just so genuine. And our father, I'll never forget it, he looked at us after this whole thing was over, and he says, I will not be beat. I will not give up. Nothing gets me down. He said, now repeat that, boys. I will not be beat. I will not give up. Nothing gets me down. And if you keep saying that over and over when you're going through trials and stuff like that, it really, really makes sense. And then our mother, bless her little heart, she said, they can kick you and they can beat you, but they can't eat you. And that was something else that we will never forget. That was our mommy right
Now
there.
that is sound advice.
That is sound advice. But, you know, going back after that whole thing, we could have turned back and gone back to Utah, but our parents really wanted us to have some kind of an enjoyment. So we went to Disneyland. And bless our mother's heart, she always dressed us alike. And, you know, sometimes that was a little uncomfortable, especially, you know, when you're walking around town. But anyway, we walked through Disneyland, and all of a sudden, a group called the Dapper Dans. They were riding on their bicycles, and they came riding right up to us, and they just said, hey, are you kids a barbershop group? We said, yeah, we sing. They said, well, sing us a song right there on the streets of Disneyland. And so we sang them a song, and the next thing you know, a group of people started to gather around. And then they sang a song. And then we sang another song. And it got to the point where it got really, really crowded out on the main street there. Well, one of the Dapper Dans went to a building right behind us. And he came out a few minutes later. He said, hey, you kids, I want you to meet somebody. Come here. And we walked in this little door, and guess who was sitting there? Walt Disney himself. And he said, hey, sing me a song. So we sang him a song. He was chuckling a little bit because Jay was had a mustache on and a derby hat. And he said, I love it. And that's right when he hired us to sing on the streets of Disneyland. Isn't that amazing? We got that opportunity. And it was during that period of time where he had a TV show called Disneyland After Dark. That was the big show. That was our big break. It went all over the country. And Andy Williams' father saw that. And it reminded him of his brothers, the Williams brothers. And so I'm going to tell you the rest of the story later, but Walt Disney is the one that gave us that really big break.
You know, guys, every time I hear that story, and it's an untold story, a lot of people don't know about that, but every time I hear that story, I get goosebumps. You know, just imagine what would have happened if my grandpa would have said, all right, kid, get back in the car, we're going to drive all the way back home. What would have happened had they gotten bitter instead of better? But instead, he, like Walt Disney says, we can all achieve our dreams if we just have the courage to pursue that. And that's what our grandpa had. He had that courage. And even though we all have bad times, right, things don't always go as planned, right? But you know what? We never give in. We never give up, right? And we stick to it. We can always get there to the end. And I always love hearing that story. And that was great advice that Walt Disney had said, that always have the courage. And I always love the analogy of, you know, especially the New Year's resolutions right now. We've all made our New Year's resolutions, right? And I'm sure you're still doing it, right? Well, sometimes we set those goals. Sometimes they don't always go as planned. For example, they thought they would just make it to L.A., they would do this audition, and that would be their big break. That was just our simple plan. But is that what happened? Not really. And that applies to all of us. Sometimes we write those goals, but sometimes they're not always realistic. And so we always need to embrace the reality that sometimes things won't always happen the way they do, and that we need to embrace that opposition and those challenges that come into our life. For example, I love this. If there's no ups and downs in your life, it means you're dead, right? We have to have that. We have to have those ups and downs. And that guarantees in everybody's lifetime, there's going to be an opportunity in your life where you'll be tapped on the shoulder. And there will be a moment where you'll be able to reach for the stars. There'll be an opportunity where you'll be able to go and have so much opportunity to do what you love to do. And so my dad is going to dedicate this next song to that this is the moment. And this moment could be yours.
Absolutely.
This is the moment. This is the day when I sent all my doubts and demons on their way. Every endeavor I have made ever is coming into play. It's here now today. This is the moment. This is the time. when the momentum and the moment are in rhyme. Give me this moment, this precious chance. I'll gather up my past and make some sense at last. This is the moment when all I've done, all of the dreaming, scheming and screaming, become one. This is the day. See sparkle and shine when all I've lived for becomes mine. For all these years I've faced the world alone, and now the time has come to prove to them I've made it on my own. This is the moment, my final test. Destiny beckoned, I never reckoned second best. I won't look down, I must not fall. This is the moment, the sweetest moment of them all. This is the moment, against all the odds. This day or never, I'll sit forever with the gods. When I look back, I will always recall, moment for moment, this was the moment, the greatest moment of them all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Kenny Rogers, everybody.
Hey.
know-
Doesn't that song say it all, though? It's it's a true song.
How old are you, Dad?
I'm 63.
63, baby, and he still got the golden throat,
No, hold
everybody.
on.
Let's give him another
Hold
round of
on,
applause.
I'm 64. What am I
Oh,
saying?
64, even better.
Jiminy
Look at
Christmas.
that.
How quickly we forget.
Okay.
Anyway, go
Great
ahead.
song, Dad. I think that's a great advice. This could be your moment at any time. When that opportunity comes, seize that moment, you guys. You know, a lot of times, a lot of people don't know that when I was born into this family, I was born with a 90% hearing loss. And for 2 years, this is 24 months, I lived in a world without sound. Imagine that. Imagine not being able to hear the comforting voices of your family and your friends, not being able to hear music, and not being able to understand all these things. And then all of a sudden, after 2 years, they finally diagnosed me with a profound hearing loss, right? I mean, it's like the light switch came on, or the Christmas tree light came on. It was a whole new world. And as they put these bulky hardware devices on me, like I said, it was a whole new world. And it was tough growing up. It wasn't very easy. I mean, I still felt isolated and lonely and disconnected and frustrated and discouraged, just because, you know, being the son of the lead singer of the Osmonds and not being able to understand. For example, I remember my family went to the New York Madison Square Garden in New York City. And I remember the screaming fans, I remember the flashing lights, and I could feel the vibration of the speakers and the drums. But in the midst of all of that, I felt like I was all by myself. It was the strangest thing, and it was one of the worst feelings in the world. It was really difficult. But of course, time goes on, and technology keeps getting better and better. I went from analog hearing aid to digital hearing aids nowadays, and I can hear a lot better. In fact, I can hear quite well. I can hear what you're thinking. Yeah, and you're probably thinking that I need some new hearing aids, right? Because they're not quite working, are they? That's okay. But you know what? It helped build my self-esteem and my self-confidence to the point where that one day I heard some great advice from my Uncle Alan. He got diagnosed with MS, and he came up with a personal motto that said, "I may have MS, but that MS did not have me." And that inspired me so much that, I'm going to apply that into my life. So my personal motto is, I may have a hearing loss, but that hearing loss did not have me. And it's made such a difference in my life. And it's the same with all of us. We have a particular challenge, but that challenge does not have to have you. So, and a lot of people know that I'm not the only one in the Osmond family that also has a hearing loss. Right, Dad?
That's right. If you look at the picture of my family right there, you'll notice the two brothers in the very back, Verl and Tom. They were the oldest brothers, and both of them were born deaf. And it was really interesting because the doctors told our parents not to have any more kids. Could you imagine? Had they not had any more kids, I wouldn't be here. The brothers wouldn't be here. Justin wouldn't be here with that beautiful smile. But anyway, they followed their dreams. They had great faith. And the thing about it is, my mother, bless her heart, she formed this foundation to raise money for kids who couldn't hear, especially like our two brothers. And it was amazing. She taught not only educations about the hearing impaired world, but she literally got us, the brothers, to go out on the streets singing songs, making $20 here, $50 here, whatever it took to help buy hearing aids. And so that foundation that my mother put together, the Osmond Foundation, has now become the Children's Miracle Network. Is that amazing? And today I can say it's raised around $6 billion for kids. Now that deserves applause right there. So that little dream of Mom's became a major, major dream, and so forth. So tell them about what happened to you.
I have to add to this. So my grandmother, your mom, I was her favorite grandchild.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. And you got to go sit down, Dad, because I have a story to tell.
Okay.
So when I was born, I was the only one in all of the second-generation Osmonds. And trust me, there's a lot of second-generation Osmond kids running around. But I was the only one that was born with a profound hearing loss. And because of that, my grandmother, knowing how passionate she is for the deaf and hard of hearing, we immediately bonded. We became best friends. And we shared that same passion to want to help the deaf and the hard of hearing. And it came a day when she passed away, one of the saddest days of my life. But I wanted to carry on her legacy and her dream and to help the deaf people. And so I started a charity in honor of my sweet grandmother, the matriarch of the Osmond family, to carry on that legacy, to help more deaf children hear. And so today I continue to collect salvaged hearing aids, obsolete hearing aids, broken hearing aids, and I fix them and recondition them so I can use them again to help other deaf children in honor of my sweet grandmother. And when I was a young boy, I was bullied. I was made fun of, I was picked on because I looked a little bit different. Of course, that doesn't make it right. So I started an anti-bullying campaign to also help other deaf children so they didn't have to go through what I went through. And that was all part of the All of Osmond Hearing Fund. And so tonight, what I would like to do is I would like to dedicate this song to my sweet grandmother. And I asked my cool cousin, Nathan, who's a very gifted songwriter, I said, Nathan, I need you to paint a song that kind of illustrates what it's like to be able to hear for your first time. Somehow, what it's like to bring music to their ears for the first time. And he, in 2 days, he wrote this amazing song called Bring Music to Your Ears. So tonight, I'd like to show you a little video called Bringing Music to Your Ears. And as you watch this, watch these kids' faces as they light up like a Christmas tree and they hear for the first time. Grandma, this is for you.
Your mother's voice. Never heard the crashing waves upon a sandy beach. But things are all about to change. Just see the people gathered round. Tonight you receive the gift of sound. Welcome to a life you never knew. You've waited long enough to hear the world around you. Whoever said dreams don't come true, you have nothing left to fear. You'll cry only happy tears when we bring music to your ears. Once you hear the ringing of your own name and the baby crying down the hall and the song playing on the radio, your family and friends are gathered round. Tonight you receive the gift of sound. Welcome to a life you never knew. You've waited long enough to hear the world around you. Whoever said dreams don't come true, you have nothing left to fear. You'll cry only happy tears when we bring music to your ears. There could be no better surprise. We can see the joy there in your eyes. Welcome to a life you never knew. You've waited long enough to hear the world around you. Whoever said dreams don't come true, you have nothing left to fear. You'll cry only happy tears when we bring music to your ears. When we bring music to your ears. When we bring music to your ears.
Isn't he amazing? Justin Osmond.
Thank you so much. I'm just so passionate about that. I've seen that video so many times. But you know what? As I traveled all over the world, I've had the blessing and the opportunity to help so many deaf children. There's one story that comes to my mind that was probably one of the greatest advice that I've ever received, and I've made it my daily creed to try to live by this. And I think this is something we can all learn from. There was a little boy that you just saw in the video. He was so incredibly happy. You probably saw him. He was all dancing away and just having the time of his life. And his mother came up to me with tears in her eyes, just saying, "Oh my goodness, this is life-changing. I never had the resources to be able to help my little boy." And then she turned to me and she said this, and this is one of the greatest advice I could ever receive. And she said this: "I hope you never measure your life by the days you have lived, but by the smiles you leave behind." Thank you for putting a smile, a better hearing smile, on my little boy's face. So tonight, we hope that my dad and I can leave a better smile on your faces as you guys go home tonight. But that's what it's all about, folks, right? Is to be able to serve others and help others and make this life a better life.
And this man knows how to serve, doesn't he?
Oh.
You're
Thank
a good
you.
man. You know, you talk about smiles. I mean, smiles are everything to me. I love it when people smile. I've had so many friends over my 60-year career that have been great friends who made me smile. A lot of entertainers that I've met over my lifetime were all about smiles, things like that. You know, there's an individual course that helped us get the whole thing started. And he gave us some very wise counsel and advice, just like my friends did, just like the entertainers I've met over time. His name was Andy Williams. You guys remember Andy Williams? Now, Andy Williams was a perfectionist. And he invited us to come on his show. And it was about an 8-year span of TV shows. But what people don't know is that we weren't invited on to the show unless we had learned something new every week. So we had to learn something new every week. For instance, we'd learn banjos in 1 week. Then they brought grand pianos in, so we had to learn pianos, and we ended up tap dancing on top of the piano. 1 week, we learned to play Dixieland. I mean, Wayne picked up the clarinet, Alan had the trumpet, I got trombone, Jay, I don't know what Jay played. Anyway, we all learned all these instruments. In fact, one week came when Andy announced it's the Christmas show, and unless you know how to ice skate, you're not going to be on the show. So what did we do? We bought ice skates, and we went out to the ice rinks every night. Our feet were bloody, bruises everywhere, but we learned to ice skate in a week because Peggy Fleming, you remember Peggy Fleming? She was the star of the show. And we ended up doing flips on the ice, holding fireworks in our hand. And it was the most amazing experience of our life. We ended up burning those ice skates because we never wanted to see ice skates again. But the thing about it, what was really funny, is that we got a phone call after that show was aired from Ice Capades, and they wanted us to join them on their tour. So that was a funny thing. But one thing Andy Williams taught us was to work hard. We learned to work. I mean, we can have all the faith and visions in the world, but if we don't work hard every day to achieve those goals, we're not going to achieve those goals. We can do hard things. We can make things happen if we work. Another individual that touched my life greatly was Bob Hope. Now, Bob Hope was a true friend. He also was very teachable. I'll tell you a quick little story. So I produced a show in Nashville, Tennessee. No, in fact, I'm sorry, it was Little Rock, Arkansas. And it was the Hope of America show. I wrote the song called Hope of America because Bob was going to be on the show. Well, Bob came 2 days earlier than supposed to be because he wanted to learn that song. And I was honored enough to be able to sit with Bob Hope for all of this time, teaching him the lyrics, teaching him the song. And here he is, Bob Hope, letting me teaching him these little lyrics and the songs and everything. And so I had a really interesting experience about being teachable. Are we being teachable? Are we willing to sit down and let somebody give us some good advice, sound advice? And of course, Bob Hope became one of our great friends. So he was a true friend. Then, Chuck Norris. He was our karate instructor. Yeah, we were in the style of Tang Soo Do Korean karate. We became instructors during his reign there and so forth. I'll never forget this story. My brothers and I were in a circle, and he was in the middle, and he was demonstrating katas and different one-step punches and those kind of things. Well, I was in the back, and all I remember was hearing, I'm going to do a flying back kick. That's all I remember. I was out cold. He had kicked me. And $1 million insurance policy ended up putting my back together again. People don't know that. But I'm $1 million man with my whole back. But who can say that Chuck Norris literally kicked the dickens out of you? But Chuck Norris, bless his heart, he said, we have tough times, but tough times don't last. Tough people do. And that is so true, isn't it? We need to be tough. And then came another thing he taught us was being a team member. You know, as I look back and I see all my brothers working together as a team, it took every one of us to make it happen. Not one of us stood out at the time. It was a team player. I mean, I know I sang lead on millions of records, but when it was time for Donnie to step forward, Donnie stepped forward, I stepped back. When Marie came forward, it was Marie's turn, we stepped back. Jimmy came forward, same thing. But had it not been for team spirit, teamwork, the Osmonds never would have achieved half the things I think we accomplished. And then came the Bee Gees. You guys know the Bee Gees. Those were buddies of ours. Bless their hearts. They were making their millions, and of course the Osmonds were making our millions, and we got together and we had the best time. I'll never forget when Morris Gibb, some of you might know this, but Morris Gibb wanted to produce an album for us. And he came to Utah, and he said, Merrill, I love it up here in these mountains. I'd like to buy a cabin. I said, okay, I'll take you around to show you some cabins. And so I drove him up to my house first because I had to get something. He said, I love this. This is a great cabin. I said, no, this is my home. He says, well, I like it. It's a cabin in the mountains. I want to buy it. And I said, it's not for sale. It's my house. He said, how much do you want for it? And I was just joking around, and he offered me a price. I couldn't, I had to take it. But what was so scary about it is he walked in the house, he saw the sheets on the bed, he saw the towels hanging up, he saw the furniture, and he says, I want everything. I don't want you to take anything out of the house, leave everything where it is. And so I said, okay. Well, I told my wife about it that night, and I don't want to even tell you what she said. But the thing about the sound advice part of this story with the Bee Gees is that Morris Gibb found himself in a situation where he had to go back to Miami for some reason and left us without the ability to finish up the album. But guess who filled in for Morris Gibb? Barry Gibb. Robin Gibb. The brothers came together. They had each other's back. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And we finished the album off, and it was an amazing thing to see. So think about it. In your environment, whether you're in business or a family, do we have each other's backs when things get really rough? That was a great, great experience for me. Then Glenn Campbell. Glenn Campbell, obviously, you probably know that he passed away. He was one of the great ones. Glenn Campbell, though, had an interesting little thing going on. He was offered a big TV show on a weekly basis. You remember that? And he asked that the brothers be on the show. But Glenn Campbell suffered with a little bit of fear. He feared failure. It was the most amazing thing. I saw him in rehearsals, just not wanting to sing out loud. He was a little shy. And one day, it was the most amazing thing that ever happened to me. Yet I was a younger person. But my dad had taught me something very important that I felt I needed to tell Glenn Campbell. And it was this. If you fear failure, then you'll never have the faith sufficient enough to believe that you can make your dreams come true. And let's say that again. If you fear failure, then you'll never have the faith sufficient enough to believe that you can fulfill your dreams. Well, he heard that. Now, I don't know if that made any difference to him at all. But he went on to become the great Glenn Campbell. That TV show was unbelievable. So, fearing failure. Sometimes we have to fail. Sometimes we have to fear that. But we need to sometimes go through the wall to see the gold at the end of the rainbow. Fearing failure is something that is so important that we understand, because we all fail and we all fear. And then came somebody that I'll never ever forget. Changed my life forever. This is when I went gray. When I met with Ronald Reagan. He came to Utah. He wanted to meet with us. He wanted us to be involved with his inaugural campaign. We agreed to do that. We get involved with him. He then becomes the President of the United States. But one thing he asked is he wanted the Mormon Tabernacle Choir to sing the Battle Hymn of the Republic at the inaugural. So I arranged with President Hinckley of the Mormon Church to get the choir arranged to take back there. Well, the thing was going fine when all of a sudden it was time for the choir to get on their big float, which, by the way, we built. It's now in the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest float to ever be made. and the choir was on it. And they started down the street to sing for the president when one of my guys ran up to me and said, the Parks and Recreation found out that the float was going to stop, and they absolutely demanded not to let it happen. I said, you've got to be kidding. If the choir goes right past the president, then that dream of his will never become a reality. So I thought for a second, and I pulled $200 out of my pocket. I said to my friend, here's $100. Go down and tell the tractor driver to flood the tractor on the X. And if he floods it, give him the other $100. And a lot of people don't know that story, but that's why that float stopped. That's why that float stopped. I was fearing failure a little bit at that time, but the choir sang their song. The president had tears in his eyes, if you remember. And that night, he invited me over to the White House. And there he stood with a circle of all of his advisors around him. And he saw me. And he said, Merrill, come on over here. And so I stood in the middle of all of this. And he said, Merrill, the highlight of my inaugural has been the choir singing that song. And then I remember looking at him and saying, you know, you are probably one of the greatest leaders that's ever led. And you know what he said back to me? It's not me. It's all the people that surround me that make me who I am. Now, isn't that amazing? That's a true thing. Whether you're the president of a company or you're a family member, put people around you that are better than yourself, and you'll come out the winner every time. That's one thing I learned from President Reagan. Now, this is another one I'll never forget. We were invited to a performance for Her Majesty the Queen of England back in the 70s. And there was protocol that you never reach out to shake her hand unless she wants to shake yours, and you never speak to her unless she wants to speak to you. So we were all nervous. We were all backstage shaking in our boots, and here she came, right there to Alan, my brother Alan, right there. Everything was going great. Moving over to Wayne, oh boy, here she comes. And as she got to me, have you ever been a little bit nervous and you wet your lips like this? Well, I was wetting my lips a little bit, and I said, hello, Mrs. Queen. And I said, oh, that went wrong. And all of the photographers were snapping their cameras and stuff at the same time. Well, the next day, in the front page, Merrill Osmond sticks tongue at the Queen. And if you look at that picture of me standing in the middle, you can see me with my tongue right out there like that. Oh my goodness, that was a very, very humiliating experience. And one of the things that I'll never forget is it's okay to make mistakes. I've learned that. We all have to make mistakes to learn what it's all about. And that was one of the things I had to learn the hard way because I was so embarrassed. But 20 years down the road, I learned something very, very important. Don't ever stick your tongue at the Queen. And then another individual that I'll never forget was the King. Had a chance to meet the King of rock and roll. What a great man. He was all about love. You know that? I'll never forget, I was at the hotel in Las Vegas, at the International Hotel. It's now become the Hilton Hotel. And the phone rings. And I pick it up, and I said, hello. And the voice said, hello, is your mother there? I said, who's this? Elvis. I said, sure. Mother says, Elvis Presley's on the phone. And you know what she said? Tell him to hold, I'll be right there. My mother knew Elvis Presley. And so, of course, that went on, and that relationship went on. One night, we were backstage with Elvis Presley, and he said something that I've never forgotten. I know my brothers feel the same way. He said if he had to do it all over again, he'd go out there and shake every hand in the audience. He missed it. He loved people. He really did. And so I'd like to sing a song. This was the #1 record for the Osmonds. It's about love. About love me for a reason. want to dedicate it to the King, our buddy, wherever you are. Love me for a reason. Oh, girl, when you hold me, how you control me, you bend and you fold me any way you please. It must be easy for you, the loving things that you do, but just to pass time for you, I could never be. And I never know, girl, if I should stay or go, girl. It's the games that you play keep driving me away. Don't love me for fun, girl. Let me be the one, girl. Love me for a reason. Let the reason be love. You know the song? Don't love me for fun, girl. Let me be the one, girl. Love me for a reason. Let the reason be love. Oh, kisses and caresses are only minor tests, babe, of love which it stresses between a woman and a man. So if love everlasting isn't what you're asking, I'll have to pass, girl, and proudly take a stand. I can't continue guessing, because it's all a mess of my pride, of my mind. So right now it's time to tell. Don't love me for fun, girl. Let me be the one, girl. Love me for a reason. Let the reason be love. Don't love me for fun, girl. Let me be the one, girl. Love me for a reason. Let the reason be love. You know, like we mentioned earlier, when the girls were banging on the doors, screaming like crazy, it was amazing. Now, we just let them in. Oh, baby, I'm just a little old-fashioned. It takes more than a physical attraction. My initial reaction is, honey, give me love, not a maximum. Don't love me for fun, girl. Let me be the one, girl. Love me for a reason. Let the reason be love. Don't love me for fun, girl. Let me be the one, girl. Love me for a reason. Let the reason be love. Isn't that a great song?
Merrill Osmond, everybody.
Hey! You're a great audience. Thank you so much.
You still got it going through it, everybody. It's amazing. You know, I so much enjoyed growing up with my dad because we'd watch movies together, and it was so fun to say, Dad, did you ever meet her? Did you meet him? And he'd always say, yes, I've met her, and he would tell me a little story or an experience he had with him and her. And my dad has met everybody on this planet pretty much, but it's pretty cool. So thank you, Dad, for sharing all those cool stories. Those are just a handful of stories, right?
Well, they are. I'm going to be writing a new book, and it's going to be interesting because it's going to have a lot more detail about some of the experiences that I've had over the years, not only with my brothers, but with the many, many entertainers from John Wayne to who knows. It's going to be an interesting book. So anyway, take it away.
Thank you, Dad. Appreciate it. You know, I haven't met that many people, but I have met a lot of wonderful role models, mentors, great examples of my life that have made me a better person today. And one of those mentors is my parents. I love my parents so much. My dad, I looked up to him as my mentor, but my mom was my teacher. she taught me so much. Both of them did. But they taught me so many different tools that I needed to be able to survive in this tough situation that I was in. And one of the things, well, they taught me many things, of course, but one of them really was mental toughness. You know, for example, I go to school, right? And I'm having a hard time hearing my teacher or my professor, and many times I would write down the notes wrong. And so what do? I take that note home and I'm studying it, but I'm studying the wrong facts. And so I failed many quizzes, I failed many exams, but I never gave up. It's that mental toughness. I've never given up, and that taught me tenacity, that taught me determination, and of course endurance, never giving up. But it taught me a lot of patience. It taught me to be more compassionate towards other people. But more importantly, it taught me to believe in myself. And what do I mean by that? I remember thinking, as you can probably hear, you can hear my deaf accent, right? And I used to be very ashamed about that. I remember thinking, man, I wish I had that golden throat like my dad. I wish I could sound like everybody else. I wish I could sound normal like everybody else. But then it dawned on me. Why do I want to sound like everybody else? You know, I already got that golden throat. My unique deaf accent. That's my signature, and that's my brand. That's who I am. And once I accepted myself for who I was and not what I was so much happier with myself. I wasn't ashamed anymore. And so that was great advice that I've received in my life that given me the courage and the skill sets and the tools to go on in my life. Another great mentor in my life, I don't know if you recognize who this person is, my buddy, Lou Ferrigno. And if you know who Lou is, he is the one Incredible Hulk. And he and I became very good friends. And a lot of it was because we had a lot in common. He also was born with a severe to profound hearing loss. And so he was also bullied as a young little boy. He wasn't big and strong like he was now back then. But he shared some great advice with me, and he was just a great role model and example to me. One of the things he taught me was to always have a good, strong, positive attitude. And that the only disability in our life is a bad attitude, right? Don't we all agree with that? It's all about having a good attitude in our lives. And I remember, I believe that everybody here has a story. Everybody has a gift, right? And you need to share that gift. And I came across an amazing quote that changed my life. And it was by Pablo Picasso. He said, "The meaning of life is to find your gift. But the purpose of life is to give it away, to share it." And that really touched me because in my life, someone gave me a gift. They gave me the gift of hearing. They gave me the gift of being able to speak and to be able to hear and do what I do today. And with that gift, I wanted to share it. I wanted to give away. And so that's why I pay it forward in doing my charity. But not too long ago, I wanted to pay it forward by helping some other deaf children in some way. And I decided, you know what? I want to run 250 miles. And by the way, I'm not a runner. Who's here run a 5K? Okay? Keep your hands up. How about a 10K? Half marathon? Full marathon? Awesome. Way to go. Congratulations. Good job. And so me, I'm not really running. I've run a marathon or two. But to run 250 miles in just 7 days was one of the biggest challenges of my life. And I know some of you guys were there with me, and I appreciate that so much. It literally was one of the most difficult things I have ever done to this point in my life. If you think about it, it's equivalent to 10 marathons back to back. And in just 7 days, that's 40 miles a day on average. And the hardest part was getting up every single morning. I mean, you know how achy you would feel after one marathon, right? You feel achy for the next couple of days, if not longer. But try getting up every morning and run another 40 miles. But what kept me going with those kids, those deaf kids? And so many times along the way, I'm not even going to tell you how many bruises I had or how many blisters I had or how many toenails I lost. But it was worth it because those kids, and I'll tell you a quick story. On my 200th mile, I was on the verge of giving up. And at that point, I'd already raised the money. I'd reached my financial goal to help these kids. So I could have given up and said, you know what, I'll help these kids, but I'm only 50 miles away, which is, it seems close, but no, 50 miles is a long ways, right? And I remember I was sitting there on the side of the road, and I just didn't know if I could make this. I didn't know if I could do this. And all of a sudden, there was a little car that pulled up, and out pops out this little boy. And he came up to me, and he gave me this big hug. And he said, thank you for running for me so that I could get a new pair of hearing aids. And that touched me like I've never been. And it was like the Energizer Bunny just came into me all of a sudden. And this extra Energizer battery was just reboosted and recharged. And that gave me the boost that I needed to run all the way down to the finish line. You know, sometimes we need that in life, right? We need a little encouragement. Sometimes when we feel like we're failing, like my dad was talking about, or we want to throw in the towel, or we want to give up, right? That is the moment that the tide will turn. And so I love this quote. When I was telling you about that, I wanted to quit. I felt like this. Losers quit when they fail, but winners fail until they succeed. And I don't know if you've heard this from our family. We have a family motto. It goes like this. We're going to keep doing it until we get it right. Right? I mean, we've been in show business now for 60 years now, and he's still doing it until he gets it right.
Exactly.
Right?
Haven't got it figured out yet.
But that's a good thing, right? We keep failing, we keep making mistakes, and we're going to keep doing it until we get it. We get it right. And that makes us stronger, and that makes us better. And I remember all the time when I've made my mistakes, and I've made my handful of them, many more than that. But when I'm down and I'm depressed, I'm having a hard time, my dad would always come up to me and say, son, you can either laugh about it or you can cry about it. But if you laugh, people will like you more, right? Learn to enjoy life a little bit more. Play hard, because life is too short. And so as a young boy, I remember I developed a desire to want to travel and see the world. And so I did. I was like, I'm going to do that. And so I joined a wonderful company called the Starkey Hearing Foundation. I always wanted to ride an elephant. And so I've done that in Africa and up in Asia. And I've always wanted to ride a camel and ride around the pyramids of Egypt. That was a dream of mine. And so I did. I went out there, and I've done it a couple times now. We need to explore. The world is such a beautiful place, right? And I've always I love Machu Picchu, and wanted to visit the 7 wonders of the world. I think I've seen 5 of the 7, so I'm still working on my list there. But I've been to Machu Picchu 3 times now, taking my sweetheart. But you got to live what you love. You got to find what you're passionate about, what you love, what makes you happy, and then live it. Don't dream about it, but make those memories. And I've always wanted to travel, and as a young boy, one of my goals was I want to visit all 50 states sometime in my life. Well, I've already checked that off. I did that by the time I was 35 years old. You know, you can do the same thing. Whatever your goals are, go for it. Make it happen. I've always wanted to visit, I've always wanted to visit Mount Everest. And I did. I didn't climb it because I cheated and I took a helicopter. But explore the possibilities, and if you don't venture, and sometimes you have to take risk, right? If you don't take those risks, and nothing ventured, nothing gained. And the one thing I've always wanted to do was to go cave diving with the great white sharks, right? But it was one of the scariest things in my whole life. And the whole idea behind that is not to create dream. You don't want to just dream about it. Go make it happen and make memories. Even if you die, you're still making memories, right? But live to make memories, or even die doing so. And I knew that when I stepped into that cage off the coast of Cape Town, South Africa, and I don't know if any of you have ever gone cave diving. It's not, these are the jaws, the great whites. And when you look into the eye of a great white, oh my goodness, it's the scariest thing in the world, but one of the most majestic things you'll ever experience. And so live to make memories. I've learned that that's such a beautiful thing to do. Don't just sit and dream, although dreaming is a good thing. And we don't want to just hear about it. We want to go out and make things happen. We want to be proactive and make it happen. So with that, always shoot for the stars, right? If you don't get any, at least you won't end up with a handful of mud either. Reach for those stars. You'll get them. You will. And so in conclusion, my dad and I would like to dedicate this last song. It's called The Impossible Dream. And for all of you, we dedicate this song to you. Each and every one of you have the potential to be all you can be and to reach all those goals, especially as we start this new year. New opportunities and new fresh. So let's make it happen, okay?
Let's do it. Let's sing this song.
The impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for the heavenly cause. For I know if I only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest. And the world will be better for this. That one man, scorned and covered with scars, still strong with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable star.
Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Thanks, everybody across the world. We love you. Thanks again. Off, I guess, huh?